And I think that's the saying I always have when folks come into our churches. We're not we're not blasting you for your past. We want to fight for your future.
Okay, there was a survey published by Focus on the Family in August of 2021, and it says in that survey that based off of their results, 4 in 10 women that have had abortions were churchgoers.
Mm-hmm.
So, churchgoers. They point to a church culture that often lacks grace because they weren't sharing that with anyone else other than in this survey.
Right.
2/3 of them, or 65%, say church members judge single women who are pregnant. A majority, 54%, think churches offer simplified decisions about pregnancy options.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we hear maybe a lot of that, or I have anyways heard a lot of that from folks that don't attend church or not considered believers themselves. They say maybe there's just some oversimplification of things.
Sure.
And then fewer than half, 41%, believe or churches are prepared to help with decisions about unwanted pregnancies. I think we have some great resources within GI Free.
Mm-hmm.
And then only 3 in 10 think churches give accurate advice about pregnancy options. And I will say I had my first child at 16, and it was probably the first time I stopped going to church, and our family was probably outcasted by the church. So I don't think that maybe some of those statements are wrong in saying that maybe there's a lot of judgment that happens to single pregnant women in that and not having that support. So just kind of bringing some of those in there. If only 38% of women who have had an abortion consider church a safe place to discuss their pregnancy options like parenting, abortion, and adoption, what would you say to that?
Right. Well, again, I'm sorry you went through that. I think, I've often said we're perfectly organized to see our current reality.
Yeah.
And it would be wrong for any pastor to stand up and go, oh, we've handled this perfectly. We have not. When I talk about we, I mean the evangelical church universal. I think the Bible-believing evangelical community has done a good job of saying life starts at conception and fighting for that. But I don't believe the church has done a great job of how do we treat somebody on the other side of abortion. Mm-hmm. Because, I've heard those statistics, that 1 out of 4 women have had an abortion. Well, I think the statistics are pretty much similar in the church as they are in community. Mm-hmm. And then you continue on with those statistics. Of those 1 in 4, 43% have had more than one abortion. So the idea is, okay, yes, which do you address? Well, it's not an either or, it's a both and. Mm-hmm. Do we stand up and say, well, we believe that, and rightfully so, that life starts at conception? Yes. But at the same time, do we love the person who has experienced an abortion? I think, and we've talked about this, I think the precedent for that, we can look at a number of passages. Mm-hmm. But the heart of God is that he's always wooing people closer to the cross, not pushing people further away from the cross. And I love, one of my favorite stories, John chapter 8. And this is not a situation where a woman has had an abortion. This is a situation where a woman is caught in an adulterous relationship. And we've mentioned this before. It's interesting. They bring the woman who's caught in adultery, and this group of Pharisees, these religious head Freds, take this woman who's caught in the act of adultery. I'm just thinking it had to be a setup, because they wanted to catch Jesus in a position to say, we got to stone her, which was the rule of somebody who's caught in an adulterous relationship.
A woman who's caught in adultery.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
Not the man, just
not
the
woman.
man.
And so it's like, where's the guy?
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't drugged before Jesus. But the way Jesus handles this is masterful, because you've got a crowd of people. You've got all these religious head Freds who are stoner, stoner, stoner. Jesus is the only one who's protecting her, loving her, siding with her. He never says adultery is okay. Mm-hmm. What he does, though, he's fighting for her future. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the saying I always have when folks come into our churches. We're not blasting you for your past. We want to fight for your future because God has hope. The cross provides hope, new beginnings, restoration. And He can take our broken story, because all of us have a broken story. Mine might not be abortion, but I've got a broken story. You've got a broken story. All God's children have a broken story. But the cross is greater still and can redeem our situation.